Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Riding Out the Storm with Your Customers. Lessons Learned from Superstorm Sandy. I'm Bob Cook, and I lead the Customer Operations practice with Utilligent, a management consulting firm focused solely on the utility industry. Sandy is still making headlines in the news, but now it's less about the horrendous storm and the havoc it wreaked, and it's more about how we can improve things today and be better prepared for the next time. As we finalize our 2013 budgets, it may be prudent to review the impacts of Sandy and incorporate some of the lessons learned into our plans. Do you have what it takes to face your customers when they've been without power for a week? What if it was 25 to 50% of your customer base for 2 weeks? Would you be prepared? Hurricane Sandy made landfall at around 8 p.m. on Monday, October 29th, near Atlantic City, New Jersey, with wind speeds of 85 miles an hour reaching highs of over 110 miles an hour. It's the largest Atlantic hurricane on record and the second costliest. Sandy's winds spanned a distance of 1,100 miles and it caused an estimated $65 billion in losses. Tracking for Sandy began on the 24th of October when it was just a tropical storm in the Caribbean, and it was predicted to land somewhere on the Jersey coast around the 28th. It was forecasted to cause power outages across 22 states in the U.S. and several provinces in our neighbor Canada. We'll be covering some steps that were taken to prepare for the storm's landfall, events that occurred as the storm progressed, some after-storm impacts to both the customer and to the utility, some common themes that emerged from post-Sandy reviews, and what an ideal servicing environment would look like from a customer and an operations perspective. Having sufficient warning, time, and reasonable assumptions regarding Sandy's direction, actions were triggered to ready utilities, to prepare emergency support and rescue personnel, and to alert the public at large regarding how to ready themselves in the event of an evacuation emergency or just plain uncertainty. In preparation for outages, utilities focus on forecasting where the storm is going to land and travel, and then estimating the size and magnitude of potential damage in order to facilitate rapid restoration of service. They have to prepare for parts, supplies, and equipment, determine where to stage it and where to store it, and define the process of how to allocate, deploy, and track it. They have to forecast, acquire, and marshal the essential human capital to do the restoration. They have to arrange for transport and quarters, coordinate roles and responsibilities, designate deployment locations, and develop the communication network and processes. Most of these resources come from the 9 voluntary mutual assistance groups that are organized across the country and made up of utility members who are at the ready specifically for situations like Sandy. They're supported by a plethora of contractors and other personnel qualified to assist in a variety of ways from running cable to trimming trees. It's a mammoth planning and coordination effort and is the primary focus of the utility for storm preparation. Government agencies are focused on the safety of their citizens, advising them to gather emergency contact information, know where to go for safety or evacuation, and what to do to stay informed. This slide contains actual instructions pulled from various government websites across the Northeast. They reference gathering phone numbers, visiting websites, downloading mobile applications, and following Twitter feeds. Utilities encourage their customers to follow the storm, know how to report an outage, and track restoration status. Government agencies, the media, and utilities provided a listing of contact numbers for outage reporting, automated reporting and information updates, and how to reach a live customer care agent. One utility assured their customers that their contact centers would be fully staffed, while a government agency encouraged their constituency to call the utility customer service line every 15 minutes until they were able to get a live representative on the phone. Postings abounded from everywhere listing pages of utility company URLs, giving specific path designations to download applications, monitor weather conditions, report outages, and receive outage and restoration status. People were urged to follow Twitter and monitor Facebook for weather, outage, and restoration updates. The digital media trend continues, encouraging customers and citizens to download and install smart apps on their phones and tablets, and enroll in utility text and email applications to receive outage and restoration alerts. Notice the focus to direct customers across a variety of communication channels, breaking away from the traditional contact center form and transitioning to digital media. Are we keeping pace with our customers? Recently, American Express conducted a study regarding customer channel preferences based on the contact reason. Notice how the preferred channels changed based on the complexity of the inquiry. Even though these digital channels can provide customers with an overview of what's going on, the contact center is still the heartbeat of customer communication, especially when a crisis is involved, and particularly as it relates to addressing their individual concern. Similar to marshaling restoration crews, the contact center must augment their staff by adjusting schedules, drafting resources from other departments, leveraging outsourcers, and activating high-volume contingency plans. This requires producing handouts, flyers, procedural materials, contact lists, systems, cheat sheets to help with data entry, manual processes, and general customer interaction guidelines. Roaming subject matter experts are at the ready to rush to a raised hand, take over a call, and fill in when contact volumes explode. Alternate customer interaction options are put into place, such as switch messages and recordings to provide status and address the inquiry before it reaches the agent, specific routing to direct the inquiry to the most appropriate endpoint, IVR scripting to facilitate storm and outage inquiries, and the ability to allow the customer to leave a message for callback or receive a call when agents are available. Login IDs have to be issued to borrowed personnel across multiple systems. Certain data screens need to be ready to facilitate essential information inputs for later action or callbacks. This preparation may not sound as complex as outage and restoration preparation, but clearly it's a daunting task. After leaving the Caribbean as a tropical storm, Sandy skirted its way across the eastern seaboard as a Category 1 hurricane and powered its way across New Jersey and Pennsylvania on into Canada. You can see the reach of Sandy's 1,100-mile wingspan and how it could wreak havoc on power lines far inland. The storm surge along the coastal areas caused double the impact of the damaging winds. Some of the surge levels reached heights of 12 to 15 feet, magnifying the effect of the storm to near Katrina levels, but across a much broader coastline of over 800 miles. Streets were flooded, trees and power lines knocked down, and water surged over seawalls and highways into low-lying streets. The water inundated tunnels, subway stations, and all electrical systems it could seep to. The water damage made repairs far more complex and added many days to the restoration process. 10 to 65% of the coastal state residents experienced power outages, and 25% were without power across Sandy's inland path. You can see that New York and New Jersey each had about 2.5 million customers without power, and Pennsylvania had over 1.25 million without electricity. There were a total of 8.5 million power outages across 21 states, impacting over 30 utilities. Over 4.5 million customers were still without electricity up to 3 days after the storm. So what would you do if a substantial part of your workforce couldn't make it into work? Remember that many contact center agents were impacted by the same storm trauma as everyone else. What would you do if your contact volume doubled or quadrupled what it would be for a normal Monday? Or if your average contact length increased by 2 to 5 minutes, or if your average wait time is now measured in hours instead of seconds. What would you do if half your agents are emergency contact handlers and novices at navigating through the system, through screens, and through finding information? Or if you're operating in the blind without access to current information and your customers are asking questions that your agents can't answer? Many of these system, process, and business issues that we see in a crisis exist in our day-to-day operations. They just happen to be amplified by situations like Sandy.
Copy that.
Is this typhoon still present in the splashdown?
Yeah.
We got the parachute situation, the heat shield, the angle of trajectory, and the typhoon. There's just so many variables. I'm a little
I know
lost.
what the problems are, Henry. This could be the worst disaster NASA's ever experienced.
With all due respect, sir, I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Most utility contact centers face operational challenges on every ordinary day. They work with aging billing systems that make feeble attempts at desktop presentation. They're low on the priority list for customer operation enhancements. Their agents must access multiple systems with differing logins. There's a lack of real-time visibility to customer interactions across channels, and little insight and tracking regarding work items that have been handed off. They face inconsistent processes for customer follow-up. They have sparse customer interaction and information and contact data. There's limited customer channel choices and inconsistency across channels. They have a long training process, deal with multiple locations and formats for knowledge management, and have to perform arduous navigation to facilitate a single customer contact, sometimes with the average of 14 screens per session. But during Sandy, contact centers had the additional challenge of substitute staffing, all hands on deck from every department and calls being routed to outsourcers. They faced information challenges, too much coming in, too little available, data not current, information too hard to find, and problems with data processes in general. And the calls just wouldn't stop, absolutely frustrating the agents. They were dealing with longer contacts, angry customers, had no time for documentation or follow-up, and were continually pressured to move on to the next call. And everyone wanted to know some sort of status. Right now, right then. But in the midst of all these challenges, utilities were doing a phenomenal job of responding to outages, restoring service, fielding customer inquiries, and following up with customer issues. It took 67,000 personnel from over 20 states to get things back to normal. As adequately stated by one utility, getting power back fast is a balancing act to have just enough crew and trucks to do the job quickly, but not so many that they were wasting money. Almost 50% of the impacted customers, we're talking about over 4 million of them, were restored within 24 to 48 hours, and 95% of them were restored within 6 days to 2 weeks. That may seem like a long time period, but the first to be repaired are transmission lines and distribution substations. Next is the power to critical community services such as hospitals, police, and fire protection and community facilities, followed by restoring service to the largest number of people as soon as possible. Service to neighborhoods, industries, and businesses is systematically restored. And finally, single residences and small groups of customers will be addressed until restoration is complete. Once Sandy had finally dissipated and turned into a whisper, its impacts were, and still are, being felt. There's continued restoration and premise follow-up involving meter tests, repairs, replacements, and inspections, and resuming backlogs of new service turn-ons and turn-offs. There are meter reads that were postponed due to restoration, re-reads appearing due to true-ups and estimates. There's processing of customer claims, complaints, escalations, and follow-up activities. We have bill adjustments, recalculations, and resends due to processing and mailing delays, perceived errors, and customer disputes. There are payment issues due to delayed bills, bills never received, bill disputes, and delayed payments due to impacts of the storm that require payment arrangements and creative solutions for customers that can't pay, won't pay, or have determined that it's just not a priority to pay, leading to procedures that facilitate disconnect intervention. Now, in sifting through the deluge of data from Hurricane Sandy, a handful of common themes emerged that's worth noting. The first theme is, that's no big surprise, restoration is critical. Customers understood the enormous challenges facing the restoration crews, the inclement weather and the long hours. They just wanted to know when their power would be back on. A great statement that sums it up. The utility did a phenomenal job of marshaling resources, and the people on the ground did a phenomenal job. The problem was a combination of misinformation and no information. We would have managed differently if we knew what to expect. The next theme that rang loud was that accuracy and consistency is vital. Customers wanted realistic, more, and accurate information. They also perceived that they weren't getting the truth. The last major theme is that communication is paramount. Customers complained of difficulty in reaching a live agent and the delay in getting a response. Not all of our means for status updates worked for everyone, especially when cell towers failed and battery power for all of our electronic devices ran out. But clearly, we discovered that social media is essential. This was a theme that was common in reviews between utilities and commissions across New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. One utility indicated that their Twitter following had increased by 87%. So do you think that wireless, mobility, and social interaction might be important?
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
It just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this. using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going, too.
The expectations from a customer's perspective were that they wanted information by their channel of choice, whether that's by phone, email, text message, web, a smart app, or from a social forum. They want fast access to information and prompt speed of answer with quick turnaround and resolution. They're looking for the right answer and accurate information and want to be treated with honesty, sincerity, empathy, and respect. They're asking for a uniformity and consistency of look, feel, and data across channels, along with knowledgeable agents and sufficient channel content and information. From the other side of the desk, these are the things that the contact centers are looking for. A 360-degree view of the customer to know their status, their contact history, the reason for the call, the customer's channel of choice, what we have promised them or have done for them, what work is in queue or in progress. All this we want at a glance. They'd like a unified desktop with one login, no toggling, and a link to crucial data, and customized screens with essential information tailored for each customer. They're looking for real-time knowledge management with automated updates showing the most current procedures, customer information, status, top issues, and most likely answers. They want conditional scripting, updated in real time, and dynamic training via multiple channels, and real-time agent communication. It would be nice to have automatic case management and assignment and workflow tracking with automated customer status notification by the customer's channel of choice. Intelligent contact routing to get the contact to the most appropriate qualified channel or agent. Social monitoring and community collaboration to stay in touch with the pulse of your customer, identify current and right now issues, and help customers self-cure. Like information capture for phone numbers, email IDs, Twitter IDs, and Facebook IDs, and automatic capture of the user's contact channel and the reason for contact. And finally, contact center management would like automated reporting and performance tools for real-time analysis and tracking. So what does your customer experience forecast look like? Is all of your customer information up to date, readily accessible, and tailored to the right now? Are your customers receiving the right response, right away, and the right way? Can your customers reach you anytime, from anywhere, in any way? Are you prepared for your next customer encounter?
I can do this!
You're right. I know you can.
Lucky Finn!
Now go! Hurry!
It's time to make your customer experience a celebration. Thanks for joining us today.